Okay, hello everyone, and today we will have a look at the bishop versus pawn endgame. Let's start with this position, and in this position actually it's already lost for white. Let me explain. The technique for white to hold this is to put your bishop on a diagonal from where it can control both of the pawns. But as you can see in this position, it's not possible. Not with a dark square bishop, not with a light square bishop. If we go to the next position, this one, in this position it's actually possible to hold a draw. Why is it possible to hold a draw? Because we can control both of black's pawns with the bishop. We can put the bishop on this diagonal from where it's controlling both of the pawns. And this is exactly the technique or kind of the rule you need to understand in order to draw this. So you need two things in order to draw this. You need a bishop, which is on this diagonal, and you need a king that is actively participating in the defense. So actually, you need both of your pieces to work together very well. How do we do that? We start off by just bringing the bishop to g5. We bring this bishop onto this diagonal from which it's controlling both of the black pawns. Let's say black would try and attack this bishop with something like this. And now you need to understand that we can kind of build a fortress by bringing in the king to the center of the board. And if the king stands in the center, it's way easier to play because let's say this bishop would be attacked, it can just retreat to f4 from where it's defended by its king. So for example, king to d6, king to g6, we bring the bishop back, and as I told you, after something like this, we're actually simply defending the bishop and there is no way for black to make progress in this position. Let's say king to g4, we can simply play some waiting moves with the bishop. Bishop to c1, c3, bishop f4, c2, bishop to c1. And let's say it's black's idea to promote this pawn and he wants to come this way, something like this. This is actually not a problem at all because now this pawn isn't defended anymore, so we can take it. And after something like king e2, king e4, king to d1, just be careful not to blunder the bishop, which would be winning for black. Actually, what we want to do is we want to sack this bishop for this pawn. And the way to do that is to go to h6. And after queens, we can simply take that. Sack the bishop, and this is obviously a draw. Now, if we go back to the other position, this is actually completely lost. Why? As I told you, we can't bring the bishop to one diagonal from where it can defend both of these pawns from promoting. Now just repeat, this diagonal is not a good option because it's not controlling this pawn. And if white were to have a light square bishop, this wouldn't be a good option because it isn't controlling this pawn. Let's say you'd say, well, I have another idea. I'll first attack the pawn, and after something like this, I'll play this move, bishop to e3. And now it looks like I'm controlling both the c1 square and the f2 square. But actually it's not on one diagonal, but now he's defending on two diagonals. And this is a very big difference. Why is this not a good defense? Because now black's plan will be to promote both of these pawns at the same time, and the bishop will not be able to handle the pressure. We have c3, king c6, c2 and king c5. And in this position there are two ways to win this. You either go like this, and after bishop takes we can promote like this, or you go like this, the bishop has to take and then we can promote. So let's have a look at the last line, f2. We are threatening to promote, so the white bishop has to do something about that, but it's already too late because we promote to a queen, and this endgame is winning for the black pieces. And I want to end with a final example. This looks very difficult because actually black now has three pawns, and it looks like it's impossible for white to come and stand on this diagonal. Why? Because there's a pawn in the way on g5. So take your time, think a little bit about this position and try to come up with an idea for white to hold this position. The idea to hold it is to play this move g6, simply sacking the pawn but clearing this square for the white bishop. And so after something like this, we get bishop g5. This is the whole idea. And it actually doesn't matter that black has three pawns. For example, something like f7. Again, the idea by white is to simply centralize the king, so it's easier to kind of build a fortress as we've seen earlier. King d6, c3, and king e5, for example. In this position, it would also be a good idea to go for something like king to d7, but this can actually sometimes be tricky. Black could try and just give up this pawn to be able to have some activity for his own king. Something like f4, bishop takes and king f6. It's still a draw, but it's more tricky because now the black king is actively participating in the game, which is not good for us. Instead, which is more easy to play, is to simply go and centralize the white king with this move, which is king to e5. We have something like c2, just some waiting move with the bishop. As I explained, we can move with this bishop on this diagonal, and let's say black has an idea of maybe coming in the game like this. After something like this, let's say bishop to g5, giving a check. This, and probably the easiest way to draw, would be to say, I mean, you want to go like this, so maybe what I'll do is just block you like this, and there is no way for black to get any counterplay, and this is probably the easiest way to draw this position. So let's do a small recap. These sorts of positions are a draw if this bishop is able to defend both of the pawns on one diagonal and the white king is able to get active. Note that if the black king were to stand here, it would be already winning for black, so we also need the black king to stand passively. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!